fuzzy welcome to Zapped to the Past Episode 0, Part 1. This special set of episodes was literally the first thing we ever recorded, just after Adrian had his 8-bit C64 game brainwave about doing a podcast. So this first part covers the pre-Zap magazine era, with an ample choice of C64 games from 1982 and 1983. We were still getting things right at this point and figuring out technical stuff, so the Zap to the Past formula in these pilot episodes is a bit unusual. That said, we still hope you enjoy our sparkly and fun look at the games, 80s stuff, and of course, the crapverts. Episode 0 Part 2 will be available immediately, so you don't even have to wait to get stuck in. Anyway, enough of me yakking. Enjoy Zap to the Past, Episode 0.
So I think the first one we're going to cover is the only one we're going to cover from 1982. Which is Choplifter. Do you want to talk about Choplifter? You got anything to say about it?
Sure. Well, Choplifter was actually, it's an arcade conversion, and there was a lot of arcade conversions back then. Mm-hmm. Not all good, I have to say. In fact, mostly not good. Mm-hmm. But Choplifter was, I think, based on an arcade. I'm not sure if the arcade was called Choplifter, but the essential premise of the game was the same. Fly the helicopter, rescue the tiny, tiny people from the evil clutches of tanks and aeroplanes, and then take them to a safe house, which is almost exactly 5 centimetres from the place where they were in danger. But there you go. That's the nature of the game. So pick up the people, drop them in the safe zone, avoid the baddies. That was the premise of the game. And I think the arcade was the same. So what did you think of the Commodore 64 version?
I was strangely pleasantly surprised. I thought it was all right, considering it's just one button and a joystick controls wise. I thought once you got used to them, the holding down the button to change the direction, similar to sort of Defender-ish style, and being able to fire down or sort of fire directly down if you sort of manage to sort of get your helicopter vertical. I thought it was all right. I quite enjoyed it. Weirdly enough, it's got some decent sort of pseudo 3D elements to it. I'd love to see some pseudo 3D elephants. That'd be great. But some pseudo 3D elements to it, something which I thought were quite weird, something because as you move lower down or as you got faster, your bombs went further into the screen, and it was all right. It was okay for the 15-20 minutes that I played it. I was like, you know what? For a game made in 1982 that I've never really been back to and haven't played for something in about 40 years or 38 years or whatever sort of thing, this is not bad. And
so, did you think it had? I mean, I made some notes when I was playing this, not while I was playing the game, because that would be virtually impossible. I put that it was repetitive, and that doesn't mean that was a bad thing, because some games are a process of repetition to just keep getting you do the same thing. But it just felt like the level of difficulty was just implemented on the quantity of airplanes, which, by the way, were flying very dangerously, erratically near helicopters. That's all I can say for that. And the tanks, did the tanks fire anything, or did they just? I think they did. Did you see them fire anything?
The tanks certainly blew up a couple of my people. I was constantly once you got to the jets, it becomes almost virtually impossible.
Yes,
because it's so hard to shoot and control everything. That's its main bugbear. It's trying to almost do too much. It's an early precursor to what was the EA games? Jungle Strike and Desert Strike. It's kind of an early precursor to them. 2D version of those. And so, but I think it was only when those games came along, sort of thing, and they had a bit more control that kind of realised its potential. But it's trying to almost do too much, and I imagine that's a sort of probably a victim of its arcade heritage. Maybe it had more buttons in the arcade.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I made my notes were that it was oddly difficult because I found myself able to just outrun the tanks and pick up the little people.
Yes.
And I felt a little warm sense of satisfaction that I'd rescued them, apart from when I landed near one of the little houses. And they just kept coming out. I'm like, stop coming out of that house, because I've only got so much room in this helicopter, and there's a tank. Get in there, get back. And then, so I thought, okay, that's good. And then I was killed virtually instantly by an aeroplane, and then repeatedly killed by the same aeroplane over and over again to the point of frustration.
Yeah.
And what struck me is that overall, it just felt like it was like an arcade game that had nothing in it apart from one aeroplane and a couple of tanks. It was devoid of enemies at certain point. I don't know if it gets more enemies, maybe. I don't know. I didn't live that long to find out.
I think there's a drone appears at one point. So am I reading? I read that
just to make it extra fun.
Yeah, there's some kind of drone that appears and kills you. I'm not sure what it's all about, but hey, it's all right.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I mean, I did notice that it had a finite sort of scrolling border to the left and a right, so you could only go so far, which is different to kind of Defender, which kind of loops.
Yes.
So there is a very heavy hint of Defender. It's certainly in the sound effects. The helicopter sound effect was really good, actually. The bombs and the guns and the shooting and the kind of, very arcade, perfunctory kind of spot effects. There was no real music or anything that I remember.
No, not really. So yeah, it's all right.
But 1982, it wasn't that bad. Sprites were all right. The helicopter looked like an helicopter.
Yeah, and tanks looked like tanks. Jet looked like a jet.
Yes,
There was weird perspective, I thought, sort of things. The jet seemed to spend a lot of time on its side. I think
it does. Yeah, no one wants to fly jets like that.
I think
really.
that's how the artist could draw jets. That's Choplifter. Choplifter. It's all right. When we looked through the games of 1982, it was pretty much the only one that actually, went, yeah, that's actually worth a look at. And pleasingly, it was.
Bravo, Choplifter. I don't know who made it. Who made?
Well, I've actually
Bobby
got a note. It was made by two
Choplifter.
people, Dan Gorlin and Dane Bigham.
Well, whatever happened to them.
I think they made. I think in my research, one of them might have made Load Runner. Anyway, right, let's crack on because that's far too much on Choplifter. What's next? Well, we were going to talk about two of these games, but we kind of condensed them down to one, and that is, and may get some people's backs up probably. I don't know. You may like these games, but Attack of the Mutant Camels. So, what do we think about Attack of the Mutant Camels? Go on. Do you want me to go first?
I think you go first because mine I got like a 2-word review of that.
Similarly, my first words are thumbs down. I don't think it's very good. It's annoying. Sound effects are annoying. Visuals are annoying. And it's just not a very good version of Empire Strikes Back on the Atari, which, really should be better on the C64, but it's not. I remember really enjoying Empire Strikes Back on the Atari. It's hard to know what to say because, Attack of the Mutant Camels has such a bit of a reputation, I guess. But I just don't think it's very good.
It's a strange one, isn't it? No, I mean, it's a strange one. I mean, because the guy that made this game, Jeff Minter's got a very strong reputation with pretty much making a game on every conceivable platform there is. And there's no criticism of the man. The man's a very clever guy. I've met him, actually. He's a lovely guy, but very clever guy. I'm pretty sure he's got one of those kind of programmy brains where he can just program anything. So I don't think I have any doubt about the guy's skill. However, back in 1983, this was, from what I could see and played, was just Centipede.
Were you playing the same game as I was? The camels walking along.
Well, I did want because the version I played didn't have any camels.
Have you played
in
the
it,
wrong game? Did you play Grid Runner?
No, I played the one that was in the list.
Yeah, there's two basically in there. There's Attack of the Mutant Camels because I did try the other one. There's AOTMC1 and AOTMC blank. Just AOTMC. It's the one that says 1 is for some reason is Grid Runner.
Right, and Grid Runner is the one with the little thing.
Centipede, yeah.
Attack
of the Mutant Camels it's Empire. You remember Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, with the walking AT-AT thing. Yeah.
But they're not. They're camels.
I don't want to imagine that. And
that's it.
I mean, to be fair, what I like is the opposite. Is imagining the film with just giant camels. For some reason, that appeals to me more than the other way around.
Empire Strikes Back with giant camels. Jeff Minter, lovely guy, game designer. Don't know. There we go. Attack of the Mutant Camels.
Okay, so that I didn't play Attack.
Yeah, it's not. It's just a knockoff Empire Strikes Back. Did you play Aztec Challenge?
I did.
Okay.
And I definitely played that because it had the word Aztec Challenge when I played it.
Way too hard. way too hard. There's something about it that I do. There are things that I like about Aztec Challenge. It's way too hard. There's too many instant deaths. There's inconsistent sound warning. Sometimes the arrows coming from the top make a wee noise. Sometimes they make a noise. And you never know, if the ones from the top made a different noise to the ones coming at the bottom, you'd have had a bit more warning of which way to jump or duck. As it is, I kept making it quite far and then dying. I never made it off the first stage because it's just way too hard. However, great music.
Yeah, I mean, I got that it was atmospheric sound, but I had no idea what I was supposed to be aiming
Absolutely.
for. I know it certainly is an Aztec challenge. There's no doubt about that, but why?
I don't know. There's just men. You're just running between a whole stream of men throwing spears at you.
Well, did you get to the next stage of that when you have to run across the various pits of things?
No, I never got past it.
I got to that stage somehow.
I kept getting to the bit where the music got really good.
It isn't it's as difficult as anything else. There's actually the 3 stages that I managed to see. There was the one where you're running upwards towards the tower, being attacked by arrows. I managed by some miracle to get past that. And by the way, the Aztec tower gets closer to you in a horrific graphical nightmarish quality. And then when you get past that, you just endlessly... There's a level where you have to climb up the steps while they throw what look like giant sugar cubes at you. So that's just avoid the rocks kind of thing. That was actually fairly easy compared to the previous one. And then after that was the nightmare of the running to the right level, where you have to run to the right and stop yourself from being hit by arrows coming directly down, or you have to jump over pits or crocodiles, which are impossibly hard to do. And I gave up after that.
Fair enough. Yeah, just way too hard. Could run though, can't he?
Hard.
He could really run. That guy, he could really run.
It did have atmospheric kind of sound.
Imagine
I don't know if that was Aztec-y though.
I don't know. Imagine changing that to like a Forrest Gump game.
Which it kind of was. You could literally take that and just call it Forrest Gump's Challenge. It would be no different.
Change the spears to chocolates.
I don't know why he would be running up towards a pyramid, but that could be.
Maybe it's a walnut.
Anything.
Maybe it's a walnut whip.
A walnut. I can't do an accent.
No, don't do it. Don't.
It's not doing it. Okay.
All right. So
Aztec Challenge. I put stupidly hard for
stupidly
that.
hard, but did lead to I think it's Paul Norman who made it. So he did do other good stuff. We'll come to that in a bit. Beachhead. What do we think to Beachhead?
Well, I was surprised because it's a really strange game. I wasn't exactly because I have really fond memories of it. What I realised by playing Beachhead was that my memories were actually of Beachhead 2, and that Beachhead itself has the most frustratingly unavoidable ship fleet known to man. I mean, did you find that?
No, I found it. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed my time. I played all the way through it. I thought the levels were really good. I had no issues with any of the levels or anything. But the progression was nice. There's some really good sort of touches for game design and sort of player affordance and stuff like that. And the visuals are, for what they were for early 1983 are still pretty decent. I thought there's a lot of character to them. Was like, I know what you're saying about, because obviously the thing with Beachhead 2 is that the speech sticks in your head and things like that. But I think with Beachhead, I just I think I shouted a bit at the trying to get the tank through to the thing at the end. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
In all fairness, graphically the game's pretty impressive, right? I mean, it's actually pretty good. I'm guessing that the premise of the game is that you have to make it to the beachhead. That was kind of what I figured you had to do. And I managed to I just seemed to haphazardly end up playing certain kinds of levels. So at one point I was trying to drive a ship through what looked like a fleet of mine.
Oh, in the cave?
So I made it sort of through that, and I got to I don't know if it was level 1 or... I just end up going back to the same thing where I was at this map. I tried to sail towards my next target, and I ended up being accosted by a fleet of ships, which I could then just never kill. I just couldn't blow the ships up, no matter how much. And to be fair, that was like a really great mini game in itself, but I just couldn't seem to get past that. However, that part of the game, which is kind of like a bit of a sub-hunter type, where you've got the cannon at the bottom and the aeroplanes flying towards you, I have to say that was a pretty enjoyable little game with the sound effects pretty cool, the animations are good. There's nothing wrong with the game. I think I just couldn't quite get to where I wanted to get to, but it certainly was playable.
Yeah, I would say of all the games, bar one, I think that I've played this lot in 1983. This is, well, let's list it. I think this is probably the second best.
Yeah,
for myself.
I enjoyed it.
For myself,
it was good. Was it? Was it a disc game or a tape game?
I can
imagine how frustrating that might be on tape.
No, I never had a disc drive, so I played it when back in the day. Always on tape. It was fine. I remember playing it.
Was it a single load? Because obviously sometimes they loaded extra levels in.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. You wanted to talk about Blue Max?
Let me just say right from the get go with Blue Max and any of the. I don't like isometric games. I don't. I don't like the games, and by isometric, obviously, I mean it's kind of you're playing the whole game on kind of a left to right angle, right? So what it means in reality is that it's clever. Don't get me wrong, and the sprites look like airplanes. I am still mystified as to some choices they made in that game, and I'll explain those in a minute. But essentially, it's just to shoot them up, right? So you're flying along, and you have to shoot things that are trying to shoot you. Simple, fairly simple. And instead of it being a kind of a classic sort of Space Invaders type top to bottom to top kind of shoot, it has that kind of angular thing. So there are parts of that which do appeal, and there were parts which were really annoying. So trying to take off must have taken me half an hour of repeatedly exploding because I kept going the wrong way, not achieving enough speed. I'm not sure even I could even control the speed. But once I was in the air shooting things, it was okay. There wasn't a lot to shoot at. You can drop bombs as well, so you can just pull down on the joystick and press the button and you drop a bomb and you can blow up buildings and things. There seemed to be no payoff for anything much. Mm-hmm. And I also noticed that there was bizarrely what looked like a sports car going across the bridge in that game. And considering I was in a biplane with an infinite supply of bombs, which I can only mean I must be quite heavy. It was a bit of game logic too far. It was okay and graphically all right, sound effects okay, but it's just I don't. Do you like isometric shooting games? I just don't. For some reason, I don't like them.
No, I don't. I think they were an attempt at 3D that never, that don't work. I don't.
Yeah, forced perspective 3D.
Yeah. I think the only one I ever really liked was Highway Encounter.
Yeah, and you know what? You've got to be committed to drawing that way. And this guy, whoever it was, got bored of drawing like isometric graphics because some of the angles on those buildings, they're not the same as the angle of the screen. So it makes you look at it and go, hang on a minute, that building looks weirdly shaped. And then the tanks are sort of as high as the buildings, and it just starts to sort of, and then there's tiny little trees, and you think, well, are those trees that building must be huge, but it's not at the right angle, and it just starts to break it all. And roll back the clock to 1983, and I might have been sat there playing it, but I remember picking out Blue Max way back then and thinking, this is just dull. It's just endless, dropping a bomb, blow up a building. Oh, there's a tank.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a game does it much better. We're going to talk about not in isometric. Does similar sort of thing, but does it in a better way.
There's better versions of that kind of idea by a countryman. It wasn't badly programmed, but it was just a bit devoid of finality.
Yeah. Blue Max, designed by Escher. Okay, I'll say the next one. What we got next? Forbidden Forest. So following on from Aztec Challenge, Paul Norman, I believe, sort of thing, made Forbidden Forest. Forbidden Forest sees you as a lone bowman trying to survive against 7 waves, levels, enemies. Well, I don't know what you'd sort of call them, that sort of thing. Through the night in the titular Forbidden Forest. It is. I'm going to be. This was my favourite of this batch. It's great. It's still great. It's so good on so many levels. I'll just start orally. The music is fantastic. Yep. Any game as well that when you shoot, has you shooting giant toads that are leaping towards you from the back of the screen, coming down on you, that crush you if they land on you. And then when you manage to kill enough of them, has a great bit of music and sees your bowman, who's quite big and chunky and actually quite pretty well animated for the time, doing a really cool dance. I'm all on board with this. This is great. There's so much good stuff. The levels are great. You get chased by, there's just so much. The moment when I play in this sort of thing and I turned and nailed the Gorgon, the dragon thing that was coming after me in one shot straight in the head, and just went straight into that dance. Oh, I was fully on board. I was like, this is amazing. This is still great. The sequel's even better, I believe, sort of thing. But Forbidden Forest for me, sort of thing, was I was a bit wary of going back to it because I do have very fond memories of it. But it's still great. It's still got it, and it's got a really, really good atmosphere that that really hooks you in, pulls you to a place sort of thing, and it. For a C64 game, lots of C64 games, like you said, like Blue Max, and they don't really have that sense of atmosphere. They don't create a feel, a mood. This manages to do it, and it does it through its use of, blocky but really sort of stylized and really sort of effective use of visuals. The monsters are all really well designed, and it makes use of its single mechanic, but it's got a really good risk reward to it because you can't just spam your arrows. You have to knock it first, so you've got to take time to actually stop and put an arrow to your bow. And that bit of time is the difference between between you being alive and a skeleton stabbing its spear in your head. And you've got to really time these things well. It's fabulous, fantastic game. I loved it, I have to say.
Yeah, and I thought that it has got a great atmosphere. There's no denying that. The sound and the music are really cool. And I noticed there's some nice effects in there that for a game of its age, you've got nice parallax scrolling in there. So you've got that kind of foreground and background dual scrolling effect, which for its time is incredible, really. The animation on the little guy is pretty cool. I mean, it is what it is. It's of its time, but it's well animated, and I actually had a lot of fun trying to play it. It's hard, but all the games like that are hard, and you can sort of see that progression from Aztec Challenge. The guy could capture atmosphere, and there's that really great opening sort of screen when you first start the game, when you get the Cosme logo and you get the kind of, the real challenging sort of eerie music. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And it wasn't a game I played way back in 1980s. In fact, I'd kind of always avoided the Forbidden Forest games. I'd never given them much time. So I actually enjoyed it quite a lot. And I put in my notes here that it was very atmospheric and quite an interesting game to play, all said and done. So, and like you say, the mechanics of the game with the arrows and stuff was really quite a clever little touch. So I did enjoy it. Yeah,
it really does stand out from, like we said earlier at the start, so many arcade conversions and these kind of things. It stood out and still does. It's hard to pigeonhole into a genre or anything. It's some kind of weird part shoot 'em up. It's part, I don't know. It's just it is what it is. It's Forbidden Forest.
Yeah.
And I think if I would to recommend any game from this lot sort of thing, would be this one. This was the best one I played.
Fair enough. No, I would agree. I did enjoy it.
Cool. That's good. Okay, we've got a couple more, and then we'll sort of take a bit of a break. So the next one was Hunchback.
It's an interesting game, Hunchback. I found it a little bit buggy.
Right, okay.
And a little bit, I hesitate to use the term really, really annoying, but it was just frustratingly, stupidly annoying. But that might be, is it an arcade conversion?
I think it is, or it's a version of an arcade. I think it very well might be. I think it probably
had
was.
That kind of feel, right?
It did, yes.
Sort of single screen challenge game, really, isn't it? So you got to get past the first wave of jumping over things, and then the next wave is jumping over things with things flying at you, and that kind of game, swinging across the rope, kind of Jungle King style, but you had to be pixel perfect on those jumps because otherwise you were dead.
Yeah.
Right? But it wasn't a game I played back in the day there, so it was kind of a fresh play for me. I think I played it on a Spectrum, but not on a Commodore 64. So it was. What did you think of the overall game?
Well, the reason why I wanted to talk about Hunchback sort of thing was it was the very first game I played in the Commodore 64. When we got it, we got that and Mr. Wimpy. So my brother came home with a Commodore 64 and Hunchback and Mr. Wimpy, and we played Hunchback religiously, the pair of us. So it has a lot of, for me, it's a very of its time, and I can remember a lot of the frustration and the challenge and getting. I got really, really good at it, and I was pleased to see sort of thing that muscle memory kicked back in, playing it sort of thing. So I cruised through it really. I remembered some of the things. I did forget some of the cheap deaths that do appear. I was shot in true Skyrim style. I was shot in the knee quite a lot from behind. There's that arrow. There's that levels where the arrows come from behind you with no warning. Yeah. So the level just starts and you're instantly dead.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. So then you jump, but oh no, the arrows can come from the top as well. Okay. Right. Okay. How am I supposed to know? But you managed to get past that level sort of thing. And yeah, it is. So it's hard for me to really be, I think I found this one quite hard to gain some distance from because it has such memories. It's okay. Right. The weird thing was for me was that thing I had completely forgotten about, and maybe you can explained why, but why did it have Teddy Bear's Picnic as the theme tune?
Do you know, I made a note of that. and it's not the only time I made a note of really weird music choices in games. I don't know why it had that. I don't get certain parts of it. I mean, I get the idea of why he would go run across a level and ring a bell.
Yeah.
Because obviously Quasimodo ringing bells.
Absolutely.
I don't get why he would kind of collect bells. And I suppose he was just collecting the ringing of it. But it just seemed odd that the premise of the game was... Because is he trying to escape from somebody, or is he trying to rescue somebody?
He's trying to rescue Esmeralda.
It's all right. So he's got to go across the challenges. And actually, there's a couple of neat touches, like... if you can't hang around on when you first start each screen, because there's like little guys creeping up the wall, and I quite like that, as much as they're really annoying. I quite like that, and but I just felt that it felt that the hazards just became really pointlessly dull over time. I kept doing the same thing over and over again. I don't know how many levels are in that game. I mean, how many times do you have to go through that screen with the pits in it and the things trying to stab you?
I think there's 15 screens to get to Esmeralda, and then it just repeats endlessly and just gets harder.
It felt like I must have gone through 900 screens, and I never got... Maybe it's just because I was doing the same one a lot.
Yeah, there's variants of a theme. There's like big pits, swingy things, knights jabbing upwards, balls, arrows, and that's your lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a weird thing was when you like start the new level, or when you get to the end of a level and you collect the bell, and the next level kind of scrolls in from the left, but Quasi's kind of just sort of moonwalking in the air, and it's just kind of weird. And like, you know, it just felt like that was kind of a really cheap kind of, I'll just leave him in the background, don't matter. He'll just float around. I'm thinking if he had the ability to just float, why would he waste his time just going across all these hazards? Just fly across there, ring that bell. Your job's easy. You don't have to do what he's doing. I guess he's just sucking for punishment. Maybe.
But yeah, it was all right. It for me, like I said, hard to distance, but you can see it being a bit of a knockoff of I don't know if is it pre-Mario? I guess it's pre-Mario. That's hence the non-scrolling stuff. Yeah. But it's one of those games that did have a lot of. I did quite enjoy my time with it, but I couldn't recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, and one final thought I had about that was that it kind of raises a spectre about something about 80s games and the naming of things. Because I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think if you were trying to release a game called Hunchback right now, I don't think that would be a very popular terminology to use. And it just struck me that back in the 80s, and we're going to come across this, I think, with some other games later down the line, is that some of the names of the games and the characters are suspicious, for want of a better term, or at least of their time. And I just thought, you wouldn't release a game called, I don't want to say any other kind of names that you might name a game that are similar to Hunchback, but you wouldn't pick on a person's disability and kind of make that into a game name. It would be a bit cruel, I think.
No.
And so it just struck me as a very 1983, 82, 83 kind of name for something, and there's loads more of them, let me tell you.
Yes, there are. Yeah. But yeah, still, Teddy Bear's Picnic. What has that got to do? What's that got to do with 18th or 19th century France?
And you can't even fit the words Quasimodo or Hunchback into that song either.
No. Right. There we go. A weird one. Very, very weird one. All right. So I think this is last in our roundup of 83, 82, 83, is Pitstop.
Yes.
So the original Pitstop. I thought it was awful.
Yeah. I really wanted to like it a lot.
Yeah, and I don't think... and I thought I had played it, but I hadn't. And when I loaded it up and booted it, and it started going, it is awful. Awful. Below a poor man's pole position. There's two things that I do like from it. It follows a track. So the corners are actually linked to the map of a track. So if it's it's a right turn, then the actual track and what you're going around. So that is kind of an early sort of example of a recognizable track that you go around, which was quite nice, which is all right. The pit stop mechanic was again, it's frustrating but interesting, and does add an element of strategy to the whole thing. But, terrible, terrible visuals. God, what's going on with those sprites?
I've pretty much written exactly the same thing. I was just like, I don't know why, but I had this kind of game in my mind. And when I started Pitstop 2, it wasn't that game. Sorry, when I started Pitstop, it wasn't that game. In fact, my memories are predominantly of Pitstop 2, which we'll cover later.
Yeah.
But at Pitstop, and I had played it back then, but I'd also played other games of that type around then, which I think the predominant one was there was another Formula 1 game that was really popular at the time. I forget the name of it now. But they're all much of a muchness. But I did think the sprites looked rubbish. And I found the spot effects of the car so irritating. It actually made me want to just, I couldn't take it after a while. And I'm not one for, I can go into any arcade and put it with sort of crazy sound effects, but when it starts to just be a drone, a really high-pitched sort of drone, which is meant to sound kind of like a Formula 1 car, but really doesn't. And I mean, if even if you turn the sound down, there's nothing really redeemable about the game. It's clever in its own way, I suppose, but the physics of it are wild. You can bounce off other cars, and it just felt really weird.
Yeah, it's not good. It's really not. No. So a disappointment, that one. Real disappointment. I was expecting basically that, the precursor to Pitstop 2, and I didn't get it. It's more like Pitstop 0.
Yeah, and you know what? I think what they did is look at Pitstop and go, you know what? Let's just make everything better and call it Pitstop 2, because it is. I mean, there's some similarities, but there's a lot in Pitstop 2 that is much better than Pitstop.
Yeah,
that comes later.
They couldn't make it worse.
Do you know, to this day, it's a mystery as to why they chose that engine sound. No, I don't. What troubles me a little bit, and it's not something that keeps me awake at night, but there's the idea that this programmers, musicians, game developers, people who made Pitstop must have put up with that sound for quite some time, and I imagine that does things to you as a human. Eventually there must be, if someone plays a kind of a sort of a synthetic kind of drone, their probably eyes start twitching, and then there's not good things going on in there. They have like Nam style flashbacks, I think, going back. Because I get them from playing it for a short space of time, and it was also really did find it easy. It was just kind of stupidly easy to go past everything. I don't know if that was just the way I was playing it, but
yeah, it wasn't. I think we just need to sum it up with it. It wasn't very good.
No sense of speed, which is kind of key.
Yeah. The one it was more like a sort of sense of slowness.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And I imagine that's what Murray Walker sounded like having an orgasm. So, and the idea of that terrifies me.
James Hunt! I never want to think about that ever. In fact, there are actually two games that I do want to touch on quickly before we do finish this section.
Sure.
One is, there's not much to say about this that hasn't been said 1,000 million times already. Came out in 83. It kind of passed me by because I think it was more of a Spectrum game, but that game was Manic Miner.
Oh, I hate it.
It is what it is, isn't it? It's become what it is, and I'm not going to add to that discourse. There's too much discourse around Manic Miner. Yeah. It is what it is. Matthew Smith and everything, and all the talk around him and everything that came, and it is what it is. Everyone knows Manic Miner. What can we add? It's that.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd say, again, they found a way of making in-game music so frightfully annoying that you actually want to smash your ears off.
Yes.
Other than that, it's cool in the gang.
Yeah.
But it is a Spectrum game, I think, really.
Yeah, and I think it is what it is. The other game, just briefly, that I would mention, sort of thing, would be Commodore's International Soccer, which is was still strangely one of the best football games on that machine. It's true. It's a weirdly good football game.
It is.
And in 2-player really shone. I remember playing this a lot back in the day. And the huge sprites, huge. God, they I don't know. I don't even know if the word expanded covers them. But they're massive. And you could run around and bounce the ball in your head and score from anywhere, and it's a fun footy game. The AI is awful. People just run, the opposing players just run about wherever, sort of thing. There's no skill involved, but for a footy game, it was, for 1983, I got a lot of enjoyment out of that. And when going back to it, whether it was some kind of weirdness or something, but I enjoyed my time with it again. It was all right.
Do you know, I don't like football games generally, and I never really liked international soccer. However, that doesn't mean it wasn't very good. And when I replayed it, I actually found it a lot better than I remembered. And the sprites are massive, they are. But do you know what? The alternatives at the time were kind of dots and things like that. They actually looked like football players. They used to have shirt colours and hair, and they kind of had a human shape. And yeah, the logic of the game is kind of mad. And I mean, this isn't Premier League teams we're talking about in that game, because when I was playing, they just kind of stood around watching me run around. I somehow scored a goal by, I don't really know how. I kind of just kicked it towards the goal and it went in. But there was that great crowd cheer noise, which I kind of expected when I would have did that. It's all right. It was all right.
Yeah, I think so. It's worth a mention. And I think with that, I think that's the honorary sort of 10 we've sort of picked out from those nation first couple of years that were worth a mention and worth a chat about, and had that were worth a look back at today because we remember them and whether they still work. And yeah, I think for me, Forbidden Forest stands head and shoulders above the rest. I think on that note, we'll take a break. We're going to look at what else was going on in 1982, 83, a little bit look at some films and music. And to see exactly what the top 10 games were then as well. So, catch you after this.
Okay, welcome back. Hello. So, what a strange time of the year. Not strange time of the year. What a strange time 1982-83 was. It's actually a bit of a time shift. You have to go back in time to when there were there was only 3, maybe 4 channels at a push on TV. TV didn't run for the full 24 hours a day. In fact, it didn't run for the whole day. In fact, I think it went off at midnight. So it was a very different time. And in that space, there was also videos and films, and there's other stuff going on around the video, as well as video games in its infancy. So without further ado, let's see what was happening in 1982-83. What was going on, AD?
All right, so I think you're right. Films. I've got the top 10 films in the UK from top 10 grossing films from 82. And just to sort of quickly go over it, I'll just maybe even just the top 5, because I think the top 5 really sum up I don't know how to put this, the strangeness, the weirdness of the British public for films. Because number one, at number 1 we've got E.T.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Obviously, huge film, so massive film. Still to this day, there's not much more to say about E.T., but E.T. is number 1. Number 2, we have Gandhi. Okay. A change in tone. And number 4, we're back with the epic, with Chariots of Fire.
Goodness me.
Okay, I know. But at number 5, and I love the fact that number 5 and number 6 are next to each other, but number 5, we have Porky's.
What?
Mm-hmm. According to IMDb, the 5th highest grossing movie in the UK in 1982 was Porky's. What does that say about us?
That's the frat comedy, right? So that's the
So
Kim Cattrall howling, having an orgasm,
yes,
kind
that's
of
the one.
slappy teen comedy garbage, right?
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. And then at number 6 was Annie.
Goodness me, what an eclectic list!
I know. So the fact that I'm looking at a screen with a picture of Porky's just above Annie. It's not something I thought I would experience on an evening. So 1982. I'm not sure what the British public was thinking. We obviously liked our cute aliens and our epics, our tales of Scottish romance, and smutty 1950s America.
I think that's a very telling list, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, things perk up in 83? Let's have a look. Let's see what we've got for 83. Things do perk up a little bit, and they become a bit more. Well, these are a bit more sort of what you might expect in your top 5, 6. Return of the Jedi is number 1.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
For 83. I can't imagine that anything was ever going to beat that in 83.
No chance.
But giving it a good run for its money was Roger Moore with Octopussy.
Oh God!
At number 2, the chase for a fake Fabergé egg. Yeah.
It's the worst Bond movie, isn't it? One of them, at least.
No, because at number 3 is Never Say Never Again.
Oh, goodness me. Were they released in the same year? That's weird.
According to IMDb.
That
who
must
am I
have
to
been
argue
confusing, right? Because that's 2 different James Bonds.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the late, great Sean Connery, isn't it, in that one?
It's his last one. Yeah, he came back. Remake of Thunderball, wasn't it?
Yeah, he should never have come back in that.
No, he should have said never. Let's face it. I'm sure that joke has been made 1,000 times, but it really should have.
Someone sent me a text message at the passing of Sean Connery, which was just Sean Gonorrhea. I'm like, oh, here we go.
Oh dear.
That's by the by. But the fact that we had Annie in the same chart as all of those things is a bit odd.
No, Annie was the year before.
Oh, is it?
This is 83. Yeah, this is 83. Number
so what
4
else was 83? Right.
Number 4 was the re-release of The Jungle Book. Number 5 was Tootsie.
Do you know how weird is this? I ended up watching that the other night because I couldn't sleep. It's just it's like Mrs. Doubtfire but serious. It's just, and it was. I think, is it meant to be funny? It wasn't. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, didn't it come out like pretty much on the back of like Kramer versus Kramer?
Dustin Hoffman was the man. I don't know.
Dustin Hoffman. So he was a bit of a dude at the time, wasn't he? But strange one.
Midnight Cowboy was around that time, I think, wasn't it? Or maybe a bit before, but
I think that was late 70s. But yeah. And then just rounding up, number 6, Superman 3.
How did that even? Yeah. Well, to be fair, Superman 3 is a comedy, right? It's just a funny film. It's a Richard Pryor comedy.
Yeah, it should be.
It's stupid in every capacity, apart from that one scene where the computer turns that woman into a robot. And that still disturbs me to this day because it just freaks me out. I don't like it. I don't know why I don't like it. It just freaks me out. I mean, it's got... Who's the woman in it? It was Billy Connolly's wife, wasn't it? Pamela Stevenson.
Pamela Stevenson, yes.
Yeah. I mean, she's amazing looking in that film, right? Stunning, and puts on a really weird accent. It's a really odd film.
Yes. Yeah, it's not good.
But we do know 2 cool things, and I mean, not to dwell on that film, but there is 2 cool things that come from that.
Okay.
One, we know what happens if you mix nicotine and kryptonite, because that turned Superman into some kind of crazy guy. No, he went wild over that because he mixes like the tar from cigarettes into kryptonite because he doesn't have the full recipe, makes that into like a gift, and then gifts Superman with a giant green rock. Which to this day makes me laugh. But anyway, let's not dwell on that. The film makes no sense. It's stupid, but it's better than Superman 4, let's face it, though.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
No.
So that's our film. That's what the British public was watching. Akagumo's Officer and Gentleman, Staying Alive, Airplane 2, Meaning of Life. Films were different back then. You still had the big blockbusters. The big blockbusters were drawing people in, but you still had space for the smaller films to still be within the top 10. Unusual. Music. What do we have going on in music? I'm going to be honest here, sort of thing, and I'm just going to give this just a cursory, guys, because I was very into films. I remember very much enjoying videos and things like that back then, sort of thing, but I was not so much into music. I remember just listening to a lot of Michael Jackson in 1982, 83, Thriller, basically.
It was like the year that came out, because it's a crazy good album, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was around then, and I just remember listening to it repeatedly, constantly. I was, the video for Thriller and everything. That was pretty much my years. I'm sort of looking through some of the stuff. Some singles I recognise, notable sort of singles that came out would have been things like 99 Red Balloons, bit of Duran Duran, Hungry Like the Wolf. I was always surprised Duran Duran were that early. I thought they were later, but
I thought they were for later than that. But in all fairness, as much as the kind of the new romantic-y kind of era was either midway through or coming to an end, I don't know really. Like you, I was kind of musically agnostic, really.
Yeah, I was
kind of driven by what my brothers and sisters liked, so I didn't really have my own kind of thing. I remember being into the Eurythmics inexplicably for some reason during 1981, 82 for about a week. So that kind of tells you what I think that was because of Sweet Dreams, which came out around that time, I think.
Yeah, it was just, I think the thing with music at that time is the thing to notice, sort of thing, is to draw it back in with sort of, technology. Was the rise of synths. Yeah. And especially that ties nicely in with, the Commodore. Yeah, and the synth chip and the SID chip and everything like that, and that rise of synthesized music through the New Romantics and all kind of things like that. So and also your avant-garde stuff like Throbbing Gristle and plans like that. And this adoption of technology was what was really going on back then. Sort of thing. I was really just too young to notice.
Yeah,
if I'm honest.
You're right, and that later, as we go more into the sort of mid '80s, becomes much more important in terms of the Commodore 64 and Zap 64 and the whole kind of 8-bit computer thing and the idea of the sound in games and everything. It becomes a lot more important later. At this time, they're still kind of at that weird, just at the cusp of arcades, but there's some people in there have got an idea that putting the music in there, like the Forbidden Forest guy, they get an idea that there's actually, it does add atmosphere, and there's every now and again you get somebody that does that.
Absolutely, and I think that's what's to take away really from the music thing. I don't have any, I like those songs now, but back at the time they didn't really mean much to me. I take the charts on my stereo.
Well, what's horrific really is that, and if you actually look back at all the releases that came out at that time, a lot of the songs that we really revere now didn't even get in the top 5 half the time. Those songs that were like really popular, number ones were all the really rubbish. People had been to Spain and come back from Spain, and in 1982, Rene and Renata was number 1 with "Save My Love." And that tells you everything you need to know. And Joe DeLucia and "What's the Matter You," and when you've got songs like Ultravox and Vienna being beaten to the number 1 slot in the charts by stuff like "What's the Matter You," hey, and all that kind of, It just shows you where Britain was at. I mean, this is the same country, remember, where we had a song called Grandad and Grandma that both went to number 1.
And the chicken song.
And the chicken song, yeah. So it's just,
And Agadoo.
Yeah, exactly. When if that was our legacy to the world, I am sorry to whomever that encountered that.
Yeah.
Superman was bad enough, but Agadoo, and I Am the Music Man. And if there is Black Lace, his best of album must be 3 tracks. Because nothing they did was good.
No, nothing.
It was just unforgettably horrific. But people like it in holidays and stuff, don't they?
And to continue onwards to what was going on, we'll just quickly wrap up with a quick look at TV.
Sure.
So TV, what was going on? 83, 84. These are the things that I pulled out as memorable to me, perhaps, and things that were going on. Beginning of 1983, in January, we had breakfast television started.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Breakfast time started on the 17th of January, so the late Frank Boff and all that lot started to broadcast TV when you were, it was a big deal about it.
TV, or was that the BBC one that came first?
It was later. It was breakfast time. It's the BBC one.
Wow.
So that was the first, bit of TV you could watch while, getting ready for school or whatever, and it was a big thing.
Eating your toast.
Yeah, so that started. Particular thing to me, just the beginning of February, Cheers aired for the first time.
Wow.
in Britain. Good old Cheers. Oh, I used to love that program.
Yeah, it's odd. It was a really cool show. It was one of those things that I never always found it totally funny because it's very American. But now I look back, there's some great episodes of that.
Yeah,
Frasier
it is.
Cool.
It was very good. It's one of those shows that I'm amazed I used to watch it as much as I did, sort of thing, because I was only 11. Or 10 or 11 sort of thing. So it seems weird to think of a 10 or 11-year-old watching something like Cheers.
What channel was it? Was that on Channel 4?
It was Channel 4, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, Channel 4 aired it, and it was excellent. I think this is more for you. On the 23rd of February, Deirdre Barlow made the choice to break up with Mike and get back with Ken.
I'm willing to put money that had like 20 million plus viewers, right, or something crazy.
The note is that the episode was one of the highest rated in the soap's history. Of course it was. I know how much of a fan you were of Coronation Street, Ken Barlow and Deirdre and the ups and downs with Mike and everything. So I thought I would include that for you.
Just for the record, I don't watch any of them now, but for some reason, there was a time in my life where I found soap operas quite compelling viewing.
There was nothing else on.
You're right, there wasn't.
As you saying sort of thing, this is 1983. There were 4 channels and there was nothing on. There was nothing on any of them.
Is that I like to think I used to watch, not religiously, but I used to watch Coronation Street, and I got quite into it at one point. But there were certain ones I kind of like Emmerdale. I was like, ugh, no, we would watch Emmerdale. Or what was that one that was set in a motel? There was one that was just randomly set in like a a hotel, a motel.
You're thinking of Crossroads.
Crossroads, yeah. It's just like, these aimless, endless shows. Just what were they about?
Mm-hmm. Terrible. But yeah, that was a big moment in TV history for the UK there. First of April, an even bigger moment though, because Roland Rat made his first appearance on TVAM.
Rat fans,
indeed. God. So that was quite a big one, sort of thing, and obviously spawned his own C64 game, which we might even cover at a later date.
Is it Roland's Rat Race?
It was, yeah. And TVAM was going down the plug holes, and he's credited as almost being TVAM's saviour.
Yeah,
weirdly enough. 29th of July, another big day if you liked hit American shows, because it was the first time that the A-Team was shown in the UK. 1983 July sort of thing.
Do you know what I like? I loved the A-Team. That was my bag back then. I remember watching the pilot. I remember watching it years ago because that pilot's the bit where it has the Jeep that gets blown up and flips, and then they use that in the opening credits forever. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool.
And I think this is a good moment to actually let's just tie this in with the A-Team game. I was maybe less this the later sort of thing, but there was a Commodore 64 game of the A-Team that we dug out and looked at. It was released at the beginning of 1985, according to what it says.
That game is inexplicable.
Let's start this off, sort of thing. Everyone knows the A-Team theme music. Okay,
yes,
it's iconic. Everyone can hum it from it who lived through that period. Everybody knows it.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. And you would think one of the easiest things to draw you into an A-Team game would be to have the title screen have a bad version. It doesn't really matter. It can be a single tune, single voice version of it.
Yep.
Don't matter. Okay.
Yep.
The A-Team game starts off with music from Star Wars,
which is just really random because nobody in that TV show was in Star Wars.
No, maybe if it was Battlestar Galactica, I might have got it. But it wasn't. It's Star Wars. It's the main theme from Star Wars. So on the title screen, it says the A-Team, and then you have a tune that is Star Wars. I don't know whether there's some miscommunication somewhere that the word A-Team got changed to X-Wing. I don't know. I can't quite figure out where this happened. And anyway, so on this title screen, as you're bemusedly listening to the Star Wars music, you're treated to the four members. I'll just say there's four faces that appear. And underneath them are the words BA, Face, Hannibal, and Murdoch. And it's a good job that those names are there, sort of thing, because they're not recognizable in any way, shape, or form. Even on a Commodore 64, where, graphics are not the greatest sort of thing, these are just random faces. There's just nothing to sort of say who's who.
No.
That wouldn't be bad enough. You're thinking, okay, well, maybe there's some kind of game in this. I mean, there's Jeeps flipping, there's things shooting. Maybe this, if you're going to make a game of the A-Team, you might make a Commando rip-off or something like that. No. What you get in the game is four floating heads moving across the top of the screen, a black screen where you control a guy with a gun at the bottom, and the floating heads drop lines upon you, and when one of the lines hits you, it says the A-Team has captured you. Try again. And this happens 3 times, then it's game over. And the floating heads, if you shoot them, just respawn immediately.
Yeah.
And these are the 4 floating heads of the A-Team. I don't remember any part of a TV show with the A-Team where they were floating heads spitting lasers at a random man with a gun. I can't remember this.
It's not what you'd call the classic premise of the TV show, which was generally the A-Team called in to rescue a person from another gang. So
when did they ever capture anyone?
They don't. In fact, they're actually always trying to not be captured. That's the whole point of them being escaping from a maximum security stockade, inexplicably again to the Los Angeles Underground. But that's a whole separate.
I can't recommend this game.
No,
but I have to. Because because it's one of those things to sort of go look at. Even if you just go look on YouTube, it's just a case of the hell. What? Because it's one of those moments. I remember this came out. I think this came out beginning of '85. So we'd had, this C64 was approaching 3 years old. The visuals were getting a lot better by this point, and then we had this. It's disappointing. Is the least damning thing I can say about it.
I mean, my notes that I made for it this was clearly not played by anybody that had ever watched the A-Team. So they just said, right, make a game out of the A-Team. And like, A-Team, got you. And what's it about? It's just 4 guys, one of them's a big like bodybuilder, black guy called BA, and then he's got, 3 white guys that he hangs around with, and they just, save stuff. Just do that.
Yeah.
All right. And then somehow that ended up with you shooting giant heads with a rifle to the... It was just weird. And I know, and then the animations on those heads were terrifying. I think the one that was Hannibal was kind of winking perpetually like he was having a stroke. And then I noticed that the one that was BA looked like he was trying to swallow a rat. So it's just kind of, his throat was going like wobble, 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 wobble. I'm like, no, that is not. No, this is a TV stalwart, and they were, the A-Team, you can't underestimate the popularity of that TV show in the US and the UK. It was massive. So how they got the license for this, and senior executive of that company looked at that and went, that is great. That's the best A-Team game I've ever seen. Yeah, nothing says A-Team more than shooting giant heads.
Yeah, because I don't remember any other A-Team game.
No, I don't. So they must have always scored the license for that.
So there you go. Dig that out if you can and be horrified.
Or don't.
Or don't.
Feel free not to.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on because that's awful. In September, the UK saw the debut of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Classic.
Don't do what Adam says not to do, or whatever.
Yeah, he was a moral guy, right?
He really was a moral guy. And I found this next one incredible. And this really does tell you a lot about the British public. Danger Mouse, towards the end of the year, reached viewing figures of 21.59 million people.
What? Good.
Nearly 22 million people of the UK. Remember, at this point, we've probably only got a population of in the mid-50s. This is nearly 50% of the population tuning in to an animated mouse.
Voiced by David Jason and Terry Scott. Well, the characters in it. My gosh.
Sweethearts of the nation.
And in all fairness, though, Danger Mouse it was good. I didn't realise it was that popular. I mean, that's crazy.
I know. I can't get my head around that.
Did that ever make it to a Commodore 64 game as well? I don't remember a Danger Mouse game. And I think
there was one, yeah. But yeah.
I just hope the same guy that made the A-Team didn't make that, because it's not going to be very good. Let me tell you.
Yeah. I mean, all these facts are from Wikipedia, sort of thing. So take them with a pinch of salt. But they are what they are.
Who are we to question the legalities and justifications of Wikipedia?
There is a reference to that, so I'm hoping it's right. But yeah, just imagine nearly 22 million people tuning in to watch Danger Mouse. Crazy. What does that say about, we love things like that.
Yeah, well, Magic Roundabout, and a lot of that, I bet, is down to the time that they put that on. Because I remember the Magic Roundabout achieved crazy popularity, and it was because it was in the 5-minute slot before the 6 o'clock news came on, so that 5:55 slot. Quite
possibly, actually, yeah. I never thought about that. Timing could have been everything. Yeah.
Oh, the schedules were very important back then.
They were, yeah. Tea time was a fixed thing.
Yeah, no such thing as on demand. If you didn't watch it at the time, you didn't see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you had a video recorder.
Yeah, but you couldn't tape over your mum's heartbeat, whatever it was.
No.
All right, 84. I've only got a couple for 84. There's probably more, but let's not dwell too much on these things.
Yeah, sure.
This is not to be laughed at. This is not a laughing thing, sort of thing, but was a particular moment in TV history. I think that will stick with a lot of people from who lived through then, especially in the UK. Was Tommy Cooper dying live on TV?
Oh, of course, he died. He died literally on TV, right, of a heart attack.
Yeah, it was on during Live from Her Majesty's collapse with a heart attack, and back on stage, and people thought that was part of the act, and then until the hand came out trying to wake him up. It's kind of a weird, horrible moment, sort of thing. And then the curtains came across, and you realise, actually, this doesn't look good. Yeah, that was a very
that was a somber moment, wasn't it? It was a bit of a sober. I think that might have been the first time I ever actually watched somebody drop dead as well.
Yeah, it's just it was a weird thing, but just middle of April, Live from Her Majesty's. Tommy Cooper was huge, massive star, especially in the UK comedy scene and just UK in general. And then for him to just go live on stage, weird. Yeah, it's just a strange thing.
He went, and I'm not being, this is no pun, but he did go just like that.
Just like, yes, absolutely. And moving on from that into equally charming territories, please don't worry too much at night. But the BBC, the first edition of Crime Wave in June of 1984. Yeah, Crime Watch, sorry. Crime Watch.
Of course. Okay.
For some reason, I've got something stuck over the word Crime Watch.
Same idea, though, right? So Crime Watch, yeah.
Crime Watch, sorry, my not reading my notes properly. Crime Watch, yes, first aired on the 7th of June.
Oh, my gosh.
And so that was, that became a real, what was it, monthly show, wasn't it? And they just show lots of crimes, and they'd always end it with, don't worry, these things can't happen to you.
Yeah.
We'll just leave you terrified.
Yeah. We've reenacted this horrific attack, but don't worry, it won't happen to you.
Yeah, so much of 80s TV was terrifying. And I think Crime Watch, public information adverts, things like threads.
I suppose you're right. You look at the context of what was going on in this kind of political, not that we dive into that, but this was Cold War, this was nuclear attack potentially, and TV was kind of reflecting this at everybody. So threads, the day after, and TV shows like that were quite common, right, at that time. Yeah,
they were. So there you go. That's a view of what was going on at the time.
Yeah.
So I think on that note, we'll move on. There you go. That was episode 0, part 1, where we've looked at 1982 and 1983, and we looked at games like Choplifter, Attack of the Mutant Camels, where Graham got the wrong game. We looked at Beachhead, Bluebacks. We looked at Forbidden Forest, Pitstop, Manic Miner, International Soccer, loads of games from 1983. Some were good, some weren't. It's our usual formula. We talked about film and things like that. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Released right now, at the same time, is the second part of episode 0. So as soon as you're done listening to this, you can go straight into part 2, and we'll talk about all the games that we fancied talking about in 1984, which include things like Alien, Boulder Dash. We've got a decathlon face-off. We've got Ghostbusters, Impossible Mission, Pit Stop 2, Raid over Moscow. Oh, there's just loads. There's just tons. So go have a listen to that, because that's also out today. Enjoy.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, sights, sounds and news from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zapped 64 magazine published at the time. We will be back next week with another podcast, so do please join us. Until then, please head over to zappedtothepast.com to sign up to our email list, as well as check out all the links and resources in the show notes. You will also find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram under Zapped to the Past. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe and see you next time.